And welcome to Leave Us Alone, the podcast that champions individual freedom and limited government. This is Grover Norquist here. I'm the president of Americans for Tax Reform, and today we're diving into the next reconciliation package, Reconciliation Package 2, going to happen or not, what should go in it, and a couple of key surprise things that may be coming. And if you're new here, this show is about one simple idea. Government should be limited, lower taxes, less regulation, fewer rules, more freedom and opportunity for all Americans. The Leave Us Alone movement protects taxpayers, property owners, businessmen and women, gun owners, homeschoolers, people who care about religious liberty, and others who only ask that the government leave them alone. Today, we're joined by Mike Palicz for this conversation, and later, special guest star Steve Moore has got a thing or two to say.
Hey, Grover, how are you doing? Looking forward to the interview with you and Steve Moore later. That should be exciting, getting a chance to get his take on indexing cap gains for inflation. So excited to hear that.
What do you want to talk about today?
Well, first, I think we should talk about kind of the state where things are in a second reconciliation, and including one of the things that should not go into it.
Let me back up 1 second here. We had one reconciliation package. Everyone remembers the big, beautiful bill, and later called the, what was the new name?
Working Families Tax Cuts.
Working Families
rebrand we're going through.
Tax Cut. Okay. We may rename it again, but the big, beautiful bill for the longest time to make it one big, beautiful bill instead of two bills that would have both failed. But we did this one big, beautiful bill. Then there was the opportunity this fall to have done a second reconciliation because you're allowed to do a certain number during the year and during the financial year for the federal budget, federal government, and then a third one in the spring. So for a number of reasons, I guess the shutdown in government was a big piece of that. We didn't do a second reconciliation package, which is a huge missed opportunity because there are a series of bills we could have gotten passed with a simple majority in the House and a simple majority in the Senate, and there could not have been a Democrat filibuster to kill them. Anyway, we passed down the second one, so we're now talking about what should have been the third bill, but will now be, if it happens, the second reconciliation package in the spring. So what can and should be in that?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I'd also just add to that the timeline, because we had this government shutdown imposed by Democrats.
Schumer's shutdown, that one.
Yeah, exactly. Seems to have slid the timeline back on a second reconciliation bill. So if Republicans are able to do this, they're more talking about something probably in the late spring. But as we see right now, we're seeing this live debate over whether or not to continue the Obamacare premium tax credits as healthcare premiums are going up with the expiration of these subsidies. We'd make the key point that those premium costs are going up because of Obamacare and despite what happens with these increased subsidies. But that is the closing debate we have here in Congress, along with the National Defense Reauthorization Act going on before Christmas break here. So these are kind of the agenda items before we would get to a second bill. And then, of course, the question of what exactly would go into this package. There's some concern that with the Supreme Court decision coming on tariffs, that the White House might seek to add Trump's tariffs into a second reconciliation bill. I think that's something that would certainly lose a lot of Republican votes on the Hill. We've always been talking about how Trump has used tariffs to secure better trade deals. To write them into law would break from that. And you'd have a discussion.
Yeah, you just promised people that if you get rid of your barriers to American trade, if you get rid of your tariff barriers, your non-tariff barriers, will reduce the tariffs that Trump put up to negotiate from. And then at the end of the day, you can turn around and go, we're going to keep the barriers there.
And we saw the administration, I think, striking some good trade deals and making progress on tariffs in terms of reducing them. Within the last few weeks, right before Thanksgiving break, we had the Treasury Secretary come out and announce that they were going to actually reduce tariffs on things that aren't grown in the United States, I believe on foods and fruit like banana, things like beef. This was, I think, good progress to see that the Trump administration, because of the trade deals they've been able to make, reducing tariffs actually. And I think if you were to reverse that course and instead just have them for the purposes of raising revenue written into law, you remove all the flexibility in negotiation that the president has used them for to that point. It'd be reusing tariffs for a different purpose and a break from their, usually as a hammer that Trump's used in his trade negotiations. So I think that's a very alarming, concerning thing, something we'd urge Congress to avoid doing.
My sense is that Congress is not in a mood, Republican or Democrat, to put a trade bill together, piece of legislation, in 5 months. These things have taken years when they've been put together to try and lower tariffs inside the United States with Canada and Mexico, with Latin America, with Europe. There are a lot of things to be looked at, and every congressman and senator has somebody in their district that would be hurt by high tariffs and benefited by lower tariffs. There's a temptation for for administration if the court strikes down much of what's left of the Trump tariffs after negotiations. I think there will be an effort by some of his staff to say, let's go and put it back in again. I can't imagine that being able to pass through the House or the Senate.
I think I'd imagine, just off the top of my head, I think half of Republicans in the House would be opposed to doing that. I think potentially
anybody with farmers, because just the headline today, farmers so badly hurt by tariffs that the president has to take $12 billion of taxpayer money to begin to patch them up from the damage from the tariffs.
And we saw that I think mirrors a similar effort that happened in the first term, where
that was even much more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. I think what we're seeing here, and like we said, there was some progress in the last few weeks on certain goods, on things not grown in the United States, on food products. But overall, I think what you're seeing here, there's an effort within the administration, I think a faction within the White House, that wants to start announcing these trade deals, to show the success of the Trump administration, the improved negotiations that they've had and then delivered on, as we see affordability, cost of living being the dominant issue going into the midterm elections. And there's no gaslighting people on this. I think Democrats have always made the mistake throughout the Biden years that inflation was just something that they had to work out the message on. You can't gaslight the public. They know their costs going up. They know their sense of their own finances, how the economy is doing. It has to be policy-driven results to address inflation, not just messaging.
If there was a second reconciliation package that moves quicker rather than slowly, meaning not involving tariffs in it, what are the things that were left out of the first reconciliation package, the one big beautiful bill, that a lot of us thought we were going to see in law by now? And for various reasons, things got tight, or sometimes the parliamentarian who decides whether something can fit into reconciliation, whether it's not a change, you can't change the laws, you can just change the budget numbers. And sometimes the parliamentarian's view of that is, I think, wrong-headed. But what are the things that you and I and others said, this is going to be in for sure, because they make so much sense, that didn't get in, that we might see in the spring?
I think it would be policy addressing healthcare and cost right now. We did make progress on health savings accounts. We got some stuff, right? Yeah, essentially 3 of 9 provisions that were in there.
That would be 1/3.
Including expansion of HSAs to qualify for, I believe, for bronze plans in Obamacare. But we left quite a bit of House-passed HSA expansion, health savings accounts on the cutting room floor that did not make it through the Senate. So I believe 6 of the 9 provisions we had on HSAs that passed the House did not ultimately get through. I think that's the first place we should go back to. There's been talk of
But one second, it's not my understanding that there's any collection of Republicans in the Senate who have a problem with this, correct?
No, I believe it primarily just came down towards battling with other priorities in the bill, the price tag on the overall bill. But since that time now, we've obviously seen, I think, a shift in the national conversation more towards what's the Republican plan on healthcare. And we're seeing that with this ongoing Obamacare fight right now. I think a sense among a lot of Republicans that they have to put forward, and this is a live question right now, but whether or not they have a healthcare alternative to just opposing these credits. I think we'll know that soon. In the next week or so, we'll see whether or not, to get out of this government shutdown, well, the one thing that Republicans had to give Chuck Schumer was a vote, I believe, on December 15th. Schumer's announced they're going to go forward with a 3-year clean extension of these Obamacare subsidies that are riddled with fraud. Whether or not Republicans offer an alternative healthcare plan to that and vote on it at the same time, that same question in the House right now. So I think what we've seen is a potential driver for a second reconciliation bill could be something in the healthcare space, where we've seen Republican leadership, Steve Scalise, come out and say association healthcare plans, further HSA expansion seem to be the first things that they would go to.
Those are all great. I do think the Republicans, though, should start with the Democrats want this almost $500 billion in additional spending over the next decade to cover up the failure of Obamacare. And for the left to say they're trying to protect Obamacare, Obamacare is that which failed. It is that which increased the cost to Americans of health care. That we were told you could keep your doctor if you wanted. That turned out to be a lie. The Washington Post actually admitted at the end of the year it was the worst lie, the biggest lie of the year. They come up with a lie every week or something that they get mad at some politician for. And this was the worst lie, the biggest lie of the year. It irritated me that the Washington Post didn't write about that lie before the bill passed. They wrote about it after it was too late so they could say, you know what? We really were paying attention. We really do know what's going on. And we say it's a lie once it's too late to change anything or to stop Obamacare. But Obamacare raised the cost of health care for everyone. It was supposed to, we were promised, reduce it for, I believe, a family of four, median income by $2,500. Instead, it got worse. It almost doubled in many cases. Why in the world would continuing the failure, and that's what a bailout is, continuing the failure, help anybody?
And we actually have a new report out just last week from the Government Accountability
Oh,
Office.
this is great. This is great.
GAO that just
Speak slowly and loudly.
that just details the rampant waste, fraud, and abuse within Obamacare. So what the GAO did is they said, let's actually test them. Let's come up. We're gonna place 20 fictitious identities. The GAO essentially purposely going on the Obamacare rolls fraudulently to see if they'd get caught. So in late 2024, 100% of the fictitious identities the GAO put forward were approved. By 2025, 18 of the 20 fake identities were receiving subsidized coverage, proving that marketplaces approved coverage for those who didn't submit documents and those who submitted fake documents, including fake citizenship eligibility. They found that the 20 identities resulted in over $12,000 per month going in fictitious payments to these accounts that should have been receiving them.
So do you think the crooks out there might be at least as smart as the GAO guys?
Yeah, and they found that one of the accounts had 125 separate insurance policies under one Social Security number. They found 58,000 deceased individual people were on the Obamacare rolls. Hundreds of thousands.
I'm sorry, 58,000 deceased. That means dead.
Yeah, so 58,
Not retired, just dead.
58,000 Social Security numbers receiving advanced premium tax credits match Social Security's death database. This means that roughly $94 million in subsidies were sent to health insurance companies on behalf of deceased individuals.
So the insurance companies walked away with the cash on that one?
Yeah, and furthermore, within this, 7,000 of these individuals, dead individuals, were dead before their coverage began. So someone's out there submitting the Social Security numbers of dead people, 7,000 of them, to perpetrate fraud. This is stolen money from taxpayers. And what it shows is there's no incentive, because ultimately it's these insurance companies who are just receiving the money. There's no incentive for them to go and actually check that the Social Security numbers belong to real people, real living people. So that's how you see this system. And it's just set up to be a direct payment to these healthcare companies. The Paragon Institute found that on average, the health insurance companies have 4x'd the growth of the S&P 500 since the passing of Obamacare. It just shows how this system is set up.
Okay, so healthcare costs didn't go down, but the health insurance companies got rich. One of the things that's interesting there is, of course, the health insurance companies were opposed to Clinton care, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton's efforts to have the government take over more of healthcare. And they said, for all the right reasons, this will be bad, this will raise costs, and so on. And their ads helped kill Clinton care. Then when Obama came in, the Democrats under Obama said to themselves, how do we keep the insurance companies from opposing what we're doing? And what they came up with follows how Britain did it. In Britain, when they had the government take over healthcare after World War II, people went to the Labour Party, the left-wing party there, and said, how are you going to get to do this? Because the doctors will hate it. This is very bad for doctors and patient-doctor relationships and so on. And the lead socialist who was pushing this said, we will stuff their mouths with gold. We will give so much money to doctors to begin with that they will shut up about how bad it is for their patients. And this is what they did with the insurance companies. They gave the insurance companies so much money that they never ran the ad saying this is bad for you, the American people, because they're so happy with the cash flow.
And we can't underestimate the scale of what we're talking about right now. So we just said 58,000 dead people on the Obamacare rolls. The Paragon Health Institute, which does fantastic work, estimated that 6.4 million Americans are improperly rolled in Obamacare exchanges. That likely is an underestimation according to their analysis.
I'm sorry, 6.8 Americans?
6.4 million Americans.
6.4 million.
And that will cost taxpayers up to $27 billion alone this year, just from people improperly enrolled on Obamacare.
Now, what is improperly enrolled meaning? They're not citizens, they're not alive?
They don't qualify, and they might not be living, as this report found. But it just gives you an idea of, because you have this system allowing for $0 premium payments, there's no incentive for the insurance companies who ultimately are receiving the money from Congress, from taxpayers. There's no incentive for them to enforce proper eligibility for the payrolls, because it doesn't matter. It's more money for them. They don't have any skin in the game to ensure that people aren't fleecing taxpayers on Obamacare.
So what else?
So from this, I think we're going to see what some of the Republican options are. I think, unfortunately, we've seen a few Republicans this week start to break ranks. We've seen Senator Roger Marshall introduce a 5-year extension of this plan. We've seen Susan Collins and Bernie Moreno in the Senate come out with their own short-term extension. And then you've also had on the House side, Representative Kagan's come out with a bipartisan 2-year extension. These are all, I think, huge mistakes for these members to be making.
Well, for starters, the subsidies that the Democrats want to continue were temporary. So why would extending temporary ones not just be making them permanent?
That's right. And to be clear, we're not even talking here about continuing the tax credits passed during Obamacare. We're talking about the additional tax credits for premiums
needed because Obamacare was failing
that were passed,
and raising costs,
that were initially passed as part of COVID legislation. That, Democrats will never let a crisis go to waste. It's an opportunity for them. So they expanded the subsidies you're getting and then re-upped them again for a second time in their Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, misnamed Inflation Reduction Act. So this is something every Republican's voted against twice. Yet here we are with some Republicans saying, well, actually, we're afraid of the elections, of having these expire. Therefore, we'll go ahead with the first time ever Republicans voting to expand Obamacare. I think Republican leadership, thankfully, has dug in on this. The White House has made very strong comments saying this is just a massive scam to throw taxpayer money at insurance companies. That's pretty accurate. I don't know why. I think it's very simple. These Republicans are overthinking the situation. Voters did not elect a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican White House with the expectation that they would come in and expand Obamacare.
That's on the list of stupid things that Republicans should avoid doing. Things that the Democrats are hoping to trick Republicans into, and that's what the shutdown was about. There is an idea that President Trump put forward back in his first term that may not require a vote of the Congress to do. Treasury Secretary Bassett has pointed out that you could, through a rulemaking, end the taxation of inflation when you do capital gains taxes. Your home you bought 20, 30 years ago, you get ready to sell it, it has gone up in value. Some of that, maybe half, maybe more of that increase is simply inflation. And what this effort by Bassett and Trump could do would be to say, if your house became $100,000 more value, but 60 of that was inflation and 40,000 was real gain, you take the 60,000 out and you only pay capital gains taxes on 40,000, not 100,000. This would be true for stocks that you've owned for many years. This would be true for a farm in your family, a ranch, land that you own, a small business that you and your spouse started. All of these, when you sell them after 10, 20, 30, 40 years, much of the value is inflation. And it's even more true after the Biden inflation and the Jimmy Carter inflation not just the day-to-day inflation in some years, that this alone would tremendously increase the real value of every house in America, of every building, of every farm, of every ranch, of every small business, because you reduce the tax on it when it gets sold. And I think it's the issue that could change the election in November.
Well, I think what Republicans have here and the Trump administration has is a very unique opportunity where this is something Trump supported in his first term, but since then, because of the Biden administration, the public has the strongest understanding of how inflation impacts their life. This is a across the board, I think, policy solution on inflation that just establishes the fact that you are not going to be taxed on the inflation that the government causes from overspending. It's just simply establishing what the proper cost basis is. It's good tax treatment. I think it is the most pro-growth lever the administration has to pull before the election. And crucially, one of which they have the authority themselves to do, that Congress, we had a great letter from Ted Cruz in the first term.
Yes.
With 22 Republican senators asserting that the executive branch has the authority to do this. We've documented all the different legal analyses that say they can pull this lever. It's one of which I think they should strongly look at doing again, even by administrative action.
I'd love to have 6 months where the Democrats are saying, let's tax inflation, and Republicans are saying, let's not, especially because we have quotations on film from Schumer, shutdown Schumer, who in the past has supported eliminating the tax on inflation. He can't do that now because the crazy wing of his party have to oppose anything that Trump or the Republicans put forward, regardless of how good an idea it is. Love to have a discussion where the Democrats say, we want to have your inflation go up and we want to tax it, and Republicans saying the opposite. Yes.
And I'm excited now. We're going to turn to your interview with Steve Moore.
Oh, good.
To talk about capital gains inflation. But before we get to Steve Moore, just want to do a quick reminder. If you're enjoying the conversation, please take a moment to rate and review Leave Us Alone on your favorite podcast platform. This helps us reach a larger audience and make sure we're expanding the Leave Us Alone coalition. Now back to more with Steve Moore.
And we have a surprise guest today, Steve Moore, extraordinary, brilliant, talented, hardworking, sound on all issues on taxes and spending. Steve, what's the most important thing we can do between now and the next election to convince the world that Republicans should get reelected and we should move forward, that the economy
The most important thing that's happened in Trump's first year in office has been huge increase in real median family income, which is going to surprise people because everyone talks about the affordability crisis. But actually, if you look at the official statistics, and we have the data ahead of everybody else, people are richer today than in the middle class, and even the lower income groups have made higher salaries than the prices have gone up. So this affordability crisis is a bit of a myth, actually. I mean, people today, the middle class has more affordability to buy the things that they want than any time before in American history.
In 2019, people talked about that year after the Trump tax cuts, a 6.8% growth in average GDP.
Yes.
For a family of four.
In his first term.
First term.
Yes.
What is it now when you say we're doing well this year?
So I'm going to give you these numbers. So the median family income in Trump's first term, adjusted for inflation, went
all
up
4 years?
In the 4 years.
Okay.
Up almost $6,000. That's a lot. That's a big increase.
With COVID on top of it?
After inflation.
Yeah.
Middle class. Then under Biden, in 4 years, you know how much middle income went up?
No.
4 years? $600. 1/10 as much as they went up under Trump.
Oh, that's
so far this year, after 1 year in office, median incomes are up about $1,200. So in 1 year, median family incomes have gone up more under Trump than they did in 4 years under Biden.
That is say that again.
Okay. So
everybody listen, write this down.
In Biden's 4 years in office, after inflation incomes for the middle class went up $600, which is close to zero.
Yes.
Under Trump in his first year in office, in the first 10 months in office, the real median family income has gone up $1,200. So twice as fast in 10 months under Trump as under 4 years under Biden.
Okay. Well, with that, Steve, thank you for joining us.
We're
Steve
winning.
Moore,
we
are winning.
Tax cuts work.
And we got to end the tax on inflation.
Yes.
Capital gains.
We have to end that. You've been the warrior on this, and I'm totally behind you on this. The next big tax cut should be allow people to index capital gains for inflation This would free up a lot of housing because people could then sell their homes when they're older. And you and I are getting older, right? And people want to downsize as they get older, and that'll free up housing for young people. And by the way, this will raise money for the government because you'll get an unlocking effect.
That's the downside.
Yes, we estimate if the Trump were to index capital gains for inflation, we'd see $150 billion more revenue go into the government because people would sell assets and get rid of the lock-in effect.
This is your
It's a win-win.
house, your stock portfolio,
Yeah.
your small business, your farm, your
People want to sell their assets. They can't do it because they're facing a gigantic tax penalty if they do.
because of the inflation that
That-
Biden and for some people that Carter gave them.
There you go.
Thank you, Steve. Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Robert.
Steve Moore. And we're back. Thank you, Steve. It is great to see Steve Moore, wonderful economist and activist in D.C. for a long time, joining the chorus that says we need to end the taxation of inflation when we do capital gains. That effort has had strong support from Steve Forbes as well, Larry Kudlow, and other serious economists who simply point out that it would increase the total wealth of the American people. 60% of Americans own homes. They would see their value go up. 60% of Americans are in the stock market. They would see the stock market grow up as well because you're no longer taxing these assets when they grow. Every farmer would be better off. Every rancher would be better off. People are out west, a lot of people who are cash poor and have a lot of income, but they're land rich. Those people would be protected. Okay, then that's it for today's episode of Leave Us Alone. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this discussion valuable, please rate, review, and share the podcast. It helps us to reach more freedom-loving listeners, and we will be back next time with more insights on protecting your liberty. Until then, I'm Grover Norquist. Look forward to seeing you shortly.